So I think you all probably realize that I'm Reverend Jaye Brooks. My pronouns are she, her. And I am so happy and excited to be joining you as your interim minister. In the second grade, I was chosen with a few of my classmates to read my story to a class of fourth graders, big kids. I was terrified. They were all looking at me, and I knew that my story really didn't have much of a plot. As I entered that room, midway in the lineup of second grade authors, the paper I carried was shaking because my hands were shaking. One of the things that instructors tell students who intend to be ministers is do not hold a piece of paper when delivering a sermon, because if your hands are shaking, the paper will shake too, and everyone will know how nervous you are. So let's get that out of the way right now. Yes, I am nervous. New congregation, first sermon, yes, each time, no matter how long I've been doing interim ministry. If I had a single piece of paper in my hand, you'd see it shaking, just like that day in front of the fourth graders. It turns out that the fourth graders were really very generous. They laughed at my story, but in a good way, in a friendly way, and they applauded at the end. Now, I'm sure their teacher had told them to applaud, but still. They weren't there to critique our stories or render judgment. They were present for us, with us, to witness us learning from the encounter. Perhaps in witnessing, they considered what they had felt and thought when they were in second grade so many years before. Now here I am at the UU Fellowship of Harford County, Maryland, and I'm so happy and so excited to be here. Many of this congregation's members have used those exact words to describe how they feel about my being here. And hearing these echoes of my own feelings has made me think about what it means to enter, rejoice, and come in. Here's one of my thoughts. Entering is a two-way street. If I'm a newcomer, how do I enter? If I'm already inside, how do I receive the newcomer? For some years now, Unitarian Universalists have been talking about radical hospitality. The word radical isn't meant in the political sense. It's intended to signal a level of hospitality that is well beyond the superficial. Hospitality that offers more than a customary, civil, polite, Miss Manners welcome. It's an attitude that includes a willingness to lead with vulnerability. What does it mean to lead with vulnerability? I learned something about that when I was interim senior minister at the UU congregation in Columbus, Ohio. We arranged for members to volunteer at a Methodist-sponsored community center in an impoverished downtown area. The leaders at the center gently coached me that our volunteers should let go of the assumption that they were there to help, and instead cultivate an attitude of being there to develop relationships, mutual, equal, appreciative relationships. So, we created an 8-week training program. Near the end of the training, the mostly white, mostly middle-income UUs volunteered for 2 hours at the center and came back into our learning circle to talk about their experiences. They had noticed how much easier it is to help than simply to be present. Serving the food in the lunch line or folding clothes in the free store. Both of those was reasonably comfortable for everyone. But just sitting and chatting with whoever happened by, that was a whole lot harder. And taking that extra step and going up to someone and entering into a conversation that was not an instruction or intended as help, that was harder still. As part of the training, before the first volunteer session, our participants had been asked to start a conversation with someone they perceived to be different from themselves, and to lead with their own vulnerability. As they talked about their experiences trying to do this little exercise out in the real world, many of the participants expressed surprise at their own level of inner need to lead with their expertise or to ask personal questions without first expressing their own vulnerability. One of the most successful encounters of this sort happened to a participant who didn't speak the same language as the person she met in a grocery store's produce aisle, but somehow they bonded over persimmons. It seems they were both struggling to determine which ones were ripe. A willingness to not know, to accompany rather than instruct, to learn something new. These were the attitudes that most helped our Unitarian Universalist volunteers. Part of the equation seemed to be letting go of the expectation that they were the one who should know what to do. To lead with vulnerability, they needed to believe that if they weren't the font of information or knowledge, they'd still be okay. This stance is one of companion leaders, people who use accompaniment as a guide for their leadership, rather than that old idea that a leader is the one who knows what to do or is the person who should decide. Congregation by covenant. We implicitly agree to accompany one another, to journey together as companions. This stance invites us to encounter one another and mediation is a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, but one that's fluid. So the new minister who comes in to fill that spot that the departing minister left empty isn't exactly the same as any previous minister. The newcomer doesn't exactly match the empty space of the departed puzzle piece. And so everyone, all of the pieces of the puzzle need to make some adjustments. All the other pieces of the jigsaw have to grow a little or let go a little. The same adjustment happens with each newcomer who enters, or even someone who's been away for a while and comes back, because they're never exactly the same as they were. Each influx increases the size of the puzzle, changes its shape, and also changes the shape of each piece. It's human nature to resist change. Yet, a fluid jigsaw puzzle that shifts and adapts to adjust itself to include and accompany newcomers is a congregation that grows in resilience and vitality. This growth happens because the individual jigsaw pieces, the members, are themselves growing and changing, reshaping themselves as they learn new truths or gain new insights. Who would want to be part of a community where, like an actual jigsaw puzzle, an individual piece is not permitted to change its size or shape, not allowed to grow? In a vital, thriving community, people who are growing and changing are always present, and the community supports this growth. When I was in second grade and read my story to the fourth graders, I learned that I could do that even though I was scared, and even knowing that my story really didn't have much of a plot. Today, my hand may shake a little during my first sermon, but I have years of practice behind me, and I know now that the story I tell has a plot with meaning and significance. I'm also comforted by my awareness of my own interest in you, all of you, my desire to hear your stories and gain new insights from learning about your perspectives. My experience tells me that the mutual sharing of stories is a solid basis for human relationships. People who listen to one another will grow. They become able to deepen the meaning and purpose of their lives. And so, we begin together this journey of accompaniment, of companionship. This journey, in its way, may be as close to the mutual practice of love as human communities can get. Love as a practice encourages us to reach out, to widen the circle, to seek engagement with people we don't yet know. Love practiced this way is radical hospitality. When Unitarian Universalists say to the world, enter, rejoice, and come in, let's hope these words mean not only that each newcomer is welcome in a kind of Miss Manners welcome way, but also that the people who are already here wish to enter into the life and stories and wisdom of the newcomer. Together we can make this congregation a community of companion leaders, people who are willing to accompany one another, to learn from one another, and ever always to shape their lives into deeper meaning. May this fellowship become a place where the circle really is always getting wider. May we become people who lead with vulnerability, even if our hands still shake each time we begin something new. May we learn here truly to enter, rejoice, and come into companionship with one another. And now we'll sing in the Teal hymnal, hymn number 1018. I think it may be incorrect in your order of service. Come and go with me to that land.